One, and we can get things started. Um, so welcome, first of all, to the LSIC Power Beaming Workshop. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, um, and we can get ourselves kicked off. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. Uh, well, I want to welcome all of our panelists and everybody who's participating in this workshop. It should be quite interesting. We've got some wonderful speakers. We've got breakouts planned. We've got some networking, essentially everything that was asked for in that registration request. We've found a way to fit it into our program. So welcome. And first, let me check. Everybody sees the screen and sees the right screen, I hope. Should be able to see my slide on power beaming. Maybe one of the other panelists could give me a thumbs up and let me know that that's working right. Yep, we're looking good. Okay. So the first question is, why should we have this Power Beam workshop? Why are we here? What's the whole point? So first, this was community requested and sponsor approved. So sort of like that Chex commercial, kid requested, parent approved. So a few months ago in one of our regular monthly telecons, this was proposed as something we wanted to take on. And of course, it's very timely as well with recent and pending solicitations, both from our sponsor, NASA Space Tech, as well as ARPA-E and others. And there's partners and outside stakeholders with additional expertise that we want to bring into this now that we have a very particular environment where power beaming may be appropriate. So that brought us together to plan this power beaming workshop and bring in all of these stakeholders together. So I know there's not everyone here is familiar actually with the LSIC, the Lunar Surface Innovation Consortium. So I'm going to give just a very quick 101 up top on the LSIC. So, we're a nationwide alliance of universities, commercial companies, nonprofit institutions, NASA, other government agencies. Really, our objectives are to improve the technology, which is for the lunar surface, and make recommendations for NASA. So you can think about it like as a communications pipeline as well as technology maturation. Those are sort of our focuses. We really, through that, we're using this LSIC, the consortium, the community, that's essentially everybody who's involved with this, to do that communication, hold these virtual workshops, build that talent, and so on. So that gives you some context for who's holding this workshop and kind of lets you know who we are. Some of the activities that we do that actually accomplish this. So this is one of the thematic workshops that we have. We also, of course, have our regular communications through the monthly newsletter, technology assessments like the power systems report, as well as ISRU has performed these. This is generally something that all of our focus groups take on in order to provide that feedback. And so here's how it sits in the yearly cycle of the LSIC. So we've got our biannual meetings, spring and fall. I'll put the link to the spring meeting chat in the chat in just a minute. And then we've got our focus groups, which meet continually throughout the year, as well as hosting these larger workshops that bring in other stakeholders. So that's kind of the point of this. We want to be able to best accomplish our technology needs assessments. And so this is one of the tools that we have for doing that. And that feeds into the proposal and funding opportunities that are provided by NASA STMD. And so here you can see, this is a picture of who and where we are distributed. We've got 390 organizations across 44 states, although we may be increasing that pretty soon. And we've got significant participation from industry, government, academia, nonprofits, sort of across the board. So we're trying to bring in as many voices as possible for that. And one thing I want to just go over quickly here too is our LSIC Code of Conduct. So the LSIC is at the intersection of government, industry, nonprofit, academia. So because of that, we are inherently interdisciplinary and diverse. And so we serve a very broad community and should be comprised of one as well. And we're dedicated to creating that inclusive environment for all members. And so articulating our values and accountabilities to one another reinforces our respect and provides avenues to adjust our culture and maintain our ambitious goal. And so we want to be committed to embody this as our team and mission goes. And so one thing that I need to make an acknowledgement and an apology for is that well, really just me personally, did not do a better job to foster diversity in this event. So full stop, no excuses. I want to apologize for that. All of us at the LSIC are working to ensure that we draw in new voices and viewpoints, and I did not accomplish that objective in my event planning. Something for which I now have many more resources, which I'll use to improve on. I want to commit to using them extensively in future planning. And beyond just being the right thing to do, studies have shown that this is critical to avoid groupthink and make sure that everyone in the community feels empowered to speak up and not just go along with the status quo, which is exactly what we're trying to do with this whole endeavor. So I'm not taking comments on this. I just wanted to apologize for that and commit to improving. So I can show you who is our surface power focus group, sort of the outward facing side of that. We've got John Scott, who's our NASA point of contact, myself, as well as Jody Burtis, who are facilitators, and Sam Andrade, who's also on our surface power team. So we have our monthly telecons every month. That's where you can come up with these ideas, bring us the ideas for other workshops and other things that we need to be aware of. You can also participate in that conversation through our Surface Power Wiki. So a big part of what Power does is to interface closely with the power consumers across the consortium. So we're not just a means to ourselves, but attending our power meetings, you'll hear a lot about what's going on in the other focus areas as well. We try to be as closely tied to them as possible. So that here's our Surface Power Focus Group annual goal. We've got a vision statement, which is really just about achieving the appropriate scale power-related technologies to enable sustained presence and exploration. And to work towards this, we're going to focus on connecting, over this next year, focus on connecting the power experts to their potential user base as possible, framed by the economic and institutional drivers that set the scale of power demand. So we want to be able to identify the near-term needs that we can prioritize, as we said before, and the long-term goals that will impact the early architectural decisions. I mean, we can say this very succinctly as just getting the right power in the right place at the right time. And so how are we actually going about that? So I'm going to have Jody speak to the Surface Power User Survey, which is something that we're taking on right now. So Jody, if you're there, you can go ahead and unmute and
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Wes. So one of the things that the Surface Power Focus Group is working on is this Surface Power User Survey. And so the goal of this survey is to capture an inventory of potential lunar surface power users and those users' needs. So the information that people will be providing in this survey is going to ultimately shape our feedback to NASA, which can influence future solicitations that NASA offers, and it can also sort of influence the direction of the field. So this is sort of just an example of some of the screenshots of this power user survey. I think if I could probably post that Google link in the chat right now. So there we go. Hopefully everyone can see that. So that's a link to the Surface Power User Survey. And so there's some example questions here, so you can kind of see what sort of things that we are looking at probing amongst the individuals who are developing technologies for the lunar surface. And so all of the responses are going to be anonymized. They're just so that we're not sort of interrupting any competition that could be resulting from technologies sort of competing, anything like that. They can also be updated on Confluence, so it doesn't have to be the final information that about your technology. They can be updated on Confluence, which, as Wes mentioned, is our sort of wiki page, our wiki platform. And I think you can email Andrea for access to that Confluence page. And this is going to be really important, I think, for individuals who are in the power community, because people who can fill this technology or fill this information out about their technology that'll sort of help inform people who are developing power technologies so that they know what types of demands, they might be needing. They can understand which types of technologies need the power, how much power these are going to need. I mean, so this is going to help the power community. I think you can go to the next slide. Yeah. Great, thank you, Andrea, for putting that in the chat. So next up, also on the Confluence page, which Andrea just dropped in the chat, her email, if you'd like to get access to our wiki. Also on the Confluence page is a who's who table, a who's who page for surface power. All of the other focus groups also have individual who's who pages that you can access from the Confluence. And so if this wasn't really stated before, this Confluence is really a place for LSIC members to do a bulk of communication with each other, and also with us, the LSIC focus group facilitators. So this who's who page, it's great for not only advertising yourself and maybe introducing your technology or your interests, things that you would like to, be working on with other people, but you can also find other people that you might be interested in collaborating with. So it can also be used as sort of a networking tool. So moving on to the next thing, there's this modularity and standards for interoperability. So the Department of Defense has started to implement this as a requirement, requirement for modular open system approach in major defense acquisition programs and definitions. And so we're hoping on the NASA side of things to, imitate this a little bit and implement something very similar to this. And so the June Surface Power monthly telecon was dedicated to this topic. So you can find the recording of that telecon on the Confluence page. Once you get in there, there's sort of tabs on the left-hand side, a structure that shows what, each of the monthly meetings that we've had, and you can go in there and find the recording, and you can learn all about sort of what people have been doing in terms of modularity and standards for the lunar surface. And then finally, there's these cross-cutting LSIC workshops. So since power is such an integral part of operations on the moon, we've been doing a lot of sort of cross-focus group collaborations in a lot of the LSIC workshops. And so the excavation and construction focus group is going to be having a workshop August 20th. And so we'll be working with them, and we'll be a part of that as well, just because excavation and construction is going to be such a huge power consumer, and they're going to be high demands for power there. And then finally, we have monthly telecons, and you can find the links to those. You can find information regarding the agendas, everything like that. Everything can be found in Confluence. And so we mostly have those telecons on a variety of things, and for the most part, we sort of probe the community about topics that they might be interested in hearing about, or companies or technologies that they might be interested in learning from. So I think that's all I wanted to say. I can pass it back over to Wes.
Great, thanks, Jody.
Sure.
So I can get now to our agenda. Let's see if I can get this to move. Maybe I can. There we go. So our agenda, day one, we're starting pretty broad. Going to hear from John Scott, who's our NASA counterpart, our point of contact that I mentioned before, to get some idea about their gap roadmap and gap closure plan. And then we're going to hear from our focus leads to get more context and demand. You'll hear about their focus groups and activities as well. And then work down through some wonderful plenary talks by Paul and Jeff and Bill. And then we'll do our breakouts, which will cover a very broad range of topics, mostly identified through your responses to the questions you had in the registration. So that's day one. It's going to be pretty broad and give us a chance to speak to a whole lot of different topics and get really great overviews of, especially focused on the PSRs, which we know are of great interest for power beaming. Day two, it's going to be pretty similar with some plenary talks. These will be a little bit shorter, and we'll hear from recent award winners from the Luster Call as well as the Watts on the Moon. And then we'll hear from some other talks, some other people as well. We're going to try to give a fair amount of time to have to have some conversation and Q&A on these. And then we'll have a panel on challenges and critical steps where to advance power beaming. So this, I think, will be really nice to hear from a very wide range of stakeholders that span from academia all the way to industry and startups, some which have more experience with our DoD counterparts as well. And then we're going to have our the technically focused breakout rooms as well, and then close out the workshop. So I'm really looking forward to seeing these talks and hearing from everyone.